Well, Candace Owens, the world's preeminent broadcaster, the biggest broadcaster in the whole world, warned us in November that the second week of December was going to be filled with incident. And she encouraged all of her followers, which are many, that they should bookend this tweet. Well, it has been a remarkable second week of December, and it's not over yet. First of all, 3 Americans were killed. Who knew that the Americans were still in Syria in such numbers, in Palmyra? Well, 3 Americans, 2 of them soldiers, one of them a translator, were brutally killed by a security man, formerly at least close to the former head of ISIS and Al-Qaeda in Syria, President, I had to choke over that word, President al-Shara Ahmed Jolani. Well, who knows what that was all about? Reports say that the killer of the 3 Americans was about to be sacked, which means he wasn't yet sacked, but was somehow sent on a detail with American service personnel in Syria. Why are Americans still in Syria? Who are they serving? What purpose are they there for? And how many of them are now shooting ducks in the far from festival of light that is today's Syria? Donald Trump promised that there would be condign punishment, but who's going to be punished? If this man, and I've just seen a picture of him, 3 people away from President al-Shara, were rogue elements on behalf of whom? And how many rogue elephants are there operating on the fringes of al-Jolani's ISIS al-Qaeda government in Damascus? If I was an American, I'd be asking those questions very keenly indeed. But even more keenly, I'd be asking what happened in Brown University in Rhode Island, where the fees are $100,000 a year. $100,000 a year for a university whose principal, who recently, 1 year ago, became a Jew and whose pictures with his husband were all over social media at the height of the slaughter. Who is who and what is what at Brown's University? I'll tell you why I ask. Because for $100,000 a year, you don't even get CCTV in the corridors. The principal didn't know which class had been occupied by apparently a lone gunman who managed to wander the corridors of the university and make his escape to a nearby hotel where we learn, though nothing else about him have we learned, someone of interest has been picked up. Arrested is the wrong word, apparently. Well, what kind of security is in place at such a prestigious university, which has a very high proportion of Jewish students? Was nobody on guard that day? And if not, why not? And who is the person of interest? What's his name? Where does he come from? These are questions that if I was an American parent with a child at Brown's University, I'd definitely be asking. But on the subject of security, let's turn to the horrific atrocity which took place today at Bondi Beach, where thousands of Jewish citizens, and of course, by the nature of Bondi Beach, many, many others, were gathered on the sands for an open-air Hanukkah festival and picnic, as they were, of course, entirely free to do. But where was the security? 10 minutes, you can see on the screen behind me, for 10 minutes, 2 men, the only name I know is Navid Akram, a qualified Salafist, that is the kind of strand of Islam professed by Al-Qaeda and ISIS, more of which in a minute, for 10 whole minutes, entirely professionally, using bolt-action firearms with ease, as if they had been doing these kind of shootings all of their lives. Bolt action, not an easy weapon to handle, but handled with ease by the aforementioned Naveed Akram. Naveed Akram swung to his left, swung to his right, maintained his posture, maintained his shape, and fired repetitively with a bolt-action gun, scores and scores of rounds, aiming deliberately and killing deliberately innocent civilian people in their swimwear on a beach. Now, I don't know who Naveed Akram was working for. I don't know if he was working for anyone. So let's deal with what I know first and foremost. He is guilty of an egregious act of mass murder of civilian people on a beach on a religious holiday. No more grave crime can be imagined. No more grave sin can be imagined. So if he really thought that he was doing this on behalf of Islam, surely he will be condemned to eternal torture in hell, in the worst seventh circle of hell. No crime greater, no sin larger than slaughtering innocent people, imagining that you are punishing guilty people. No sin worse than systematically eliminating people on a beach whose names you don't know, whose views you don't know, entirely nihilistic, indiscriminate slaughter. That's what Naveed Akram, the Salafist, was doing. If, on the other hand, he was one of the people that Candace Owens warned us about back in November, then I don't know what punishment would be suitable for such a man. I don't know if this was a false flag. I hope that we will, in time, know more about it. But if it was a false flag, then Benjamin Netanyahu would be acting exactly the same as he is acting right at this minute, this hour. Netanyahu is lecturing the Australian government that they are responsible for this because they recognized the Palestinian state. How's that for chutzpah? Netanyahu is claiming he warned Australia that the presence of large numbers of people in Australia who oppose the slaughter, genocide in Gaza was contributing to a set of circumstances that made an event like today, he said, inevitable. Well, there are two ways that it could be inevitable. And one of them is that you organized it. I'm not saying that you did. It's perfectly possible that these fanatic extremists, Salafists, did this all on their own. Not working for Israel, but they might as well be. Because, of course, the primary beneficiary of the slaughter on Bondi Beach today is that man, Benjamin Netanyahu. It is he who is the beneficiary. And now the slaughter will surely herald greater crackdowns on Muslims, greater crackdowns on Palestinian solidarity work in Australia, and maybe more widely, for this, of course, has turned into a global phenomenon. If 11 people, 12 people had been shot dead queuing for food in Gaza, you wouldn't even know about it. You wouldn't know the name of a single one of the slaughtered queuing for food in Gaza. if they'd been slaughtered on Gaza's beach rather than Bondi Beach, you wouldn't even know about it. No outlet would even report it, let alone urge you to sympathize with it. It's perfectly possible, though, that these maniacs did this of their own volition. It's perfectly possible that, like 7/7 in London, this perverted, degenerate strand of Islam that on 7/7 slaughtered 52 people on the London Underground and on a London bus, including in the station Whitechapel East that I then represented in Parliament. I saw the bloodied and the dead being carried out of the underground station. These people who committed that act were presumably not carrying out any false flag. They did it of their own volition. So my mind is open as to which of these two possibilities is involved here. But what I reiterate is that if this was a false flag affair, Israel and Netanyahu would not be exploiting it any differently to the way they are exploiting this. The anti-Muslim narrative, of course, unexpectedly, by an act of such heroism as to leave you aghast, the killer on that bridge was disarmed by a 43-year-old Muslim shopkeeper in Sutherland, Sydney, Australia, a fruit shop owner who sells watermelon, who sells strawberries and raspberries, actually jumped on one of the gunmen and disarmed him, and then spared his life, I should say. That was Islam in action, wasn't it? That was a Muslim in action, wasn't it? Remember his name, Ahmed al-Ahmed. Netanyahu called him a Jew who jumped on the back of the gunman and disarmed him. Other Zionist trolls are saying he's a Lebanese Christian called Ahmed al-Ahmad. If you believe that, I've got a bridge in London I could sell you going cheap. This hero is the latest in a long line of Muslim heroes on the scene of such horrific acts of mass murder and terrorism. The railway guard on the train in Huntingdon in England, an Algerian British man who sustained horrific injuries protecting the passengers on the train from a machete-wielding madman who was proceeding from carriage to carriage, committing atrocities. He was released from hospital today, but you didn't know that because no British broadcaster broadcast it. He's already forgotten. Let's make sure that Ahmed al-Ahmad, the hero of Bondi Beach, is not forgotten. He's an Australian national. That makes him eligible for the George Cross. I demand that King Charles decorates him with the highest civilian award in the Commonwealth for a civilian act of bravery. I want to see Ahmed al-Ahmad receive the George Cross in Buckingham Palace. That's a direct demand from the mother of all talk shows to His Majesty King Charles III. So much else is happening in the world. The war, apparently, is starting in Venezuela. I said the war is starting because I could have chosen any number of them. I could have chosen Iran, where Israel has just accused Iran of being behind, the mass murder in Sydney, even though the perpetrator is a Salafist who hates Iran and regards the Shiite branch of the Muslim religion as heretic. If you believe that one, I will sell you a bridge in London going cheap. But of course, Netanyahu needs a casus belli. Netanyahu is itching for a war with Iran. So maybe that's the one we'll be talking about with Chris Hedges, the Pulitzer Prize-winning former head of the Middle East Bureau of the New York Times, later in this show. Or I could have mentioned some of the wars that Donald Trump boasted he'd ended. I'm not talking about the Armenia, Albania, Azerbaijan, or Azerbaijan. I'm not talking about those. I'm talking about Cambodia versus Thailand. There is no ceasefire. Thailand has occupied a city in Cambodia and is bombing using its Royal Air Force Cambodian villages, towns, and cities like old times, isn't it? The Cambodians, who I would argue started this conflict, are fighting back. The war is raging. Donald Trump has made a telephone call, but nobody, it would appear, picked up. But I think the big war that is most likely is the war Donald Trump is threatening in Venezuela. He's murdered people on rubber dinghies, out fishing, or maybe out moving from one country to the next, maybe out for a pleasure cruise. Who knows? Certainly not Donald Trump, certainly not Pete Hegseth, certainly not Admiral whatever his name is, who's now had to take control because the previous admiral resigned rather than commit what are unarguably war crimes, crimes against humanity. They are illegally in Venezuela's waters. They are illegally flying over Venezuelan airspace. And Trump said yesterday, the war on land is starting. It's beginning to look like I was wrong when I said that I thought it was all a bluff or all a blind to cover something else that might be about to happen. It looks as if Donald Trump really is intending not just to bombard Venezuela, but to put American boots on the ground in what will become, I promise you, a Latin American Vietnam. The boots on the ground will soon be in a coffin in significant numbers. And if I was an American parent, I'd be mighty, mighty concerned about that. It's all coming up here on the Mother of All Talk Shows. Stay tuned.